13 plus years back, I remember, going up on stage in a mentor's room. My heartbeat will be at such a rate. It felt on a very rare occasion that the heart will pop out of my body. People get nervousness when it comes to public speaking because they relate it to the idea of performance. And as a human being, the way our psychology is designed, the more we think about performance, the more pressure it builds up on us. One has to understand that presentation is not something you can just stand up and do it. So you must take this as a skill which you want to acquire on your side hustle hours, maybe, let's say, maybe on the weekends.
Hi, I'm Gurnoor Kaur Behel and welcome to another episode of Workwise with Naukri. Today we'll be talking about how to overcome the fear of public speaking and presentations. With us we have Amandeep Thind, an inspirational speaker and transformational coach, helping people share their message and monetize their life experiences through public speaking and group communication. So let's get started. Welcome to Workwise with Naukri. Today we have with us Amandeep Thind. Amandeep, how are you today?
I'm very blessed, Gurnoor. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on this episode. Before I share my level of excitement, I think people should know about your journey.
Thank you. It's an honor to share, about the journey I have been through, which has led me to be, in these shoes right now. When I was 16, my father had to move from Kolkata to a remote village, in a district called Sangrur, which is like 60 kilometers, kind of, roughly from Ludhiana. A lot of people don't know. So just to give you, understanding where it was. So it was year 1994, and things were not the way India is now. It was pretty remote village. So when I had to move from Kolkata to Punjab, when I was 16 years old, I went through a lot of bullying, in my village, because the peer group I had, they looked a bit different and they acted a bit different because of their background. Yeah. Most of them, they had beards, they would wear a turban, and they were physically a bit stronger than me because they did farming. So they maybe had tough hands, they could lift more than me, I could lift. So going through that experience, was one of the most horrible experiences of my life. I remember probably for 4 or 5 months, I couldn't go to sleep properly. And then I don't know how a magical moment happened, I have no idea till this day how they got my name and address, but I got a letter from a company called Amway.
Right.
It was launching in India in 1998. I traveled 100 plus kilometers from my village Bishangarh and I went to Jalandhar to attend the Amway meeting.
Right.
Because the wordings were very powerful. I understand it was marketing lines, but at that time I felt very special and I thought it was written for me personally.
Right.
So I went and I saw a guy called Dr. Brach on stage doing a Amway presentation.
Right.
And as you were sharing something on those lines, I got goosebumps and I was captivated and mesmerized looking at him. And you know what? There was a desire very deep inside me. It was so deep that even I was fearful of telling my own self that I am thinking this and feeling this, that I would like to be on stage and do what he's doing, from the stage. At the end, he said, whether you join the Amway business or not, doesn't matter. We highly recommend you pick up one book from the back. It will definitely help you on this life's journey. And I went to the back and I saw a couple of collection, books they had, and my world opened up to something called personal development.
Right. Yeah.
I picked up 2 books because, the title spoke to me because my condition financially was not good. So I definitely wanted to be rich as a person. So I picked up Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure you may have read that book
absolutely.
as well. And the second book I picked up because the title again spoke to me. It said, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. So I read these 2 books and I kept reading a couple of more books on that journey. And in 2000, I relocated from my village to Delhi for my further education.
Lovely.
Yeah, and I went for a training with a trainer called Rajesh Agarwal. He was a motivational trainer during those, times.
Yes.
So I did a training with him and I became friends with somebody at that event. And they recommended me a book from Tony Robbins called Awaken the Giant Within.
Right.
So in 2003, I did not know who Tony is, but reading his book, I was inspired. And then I got a scholarship to go and study in UK in 2006. While doing, my master's, I came across an ad. I was looking for a part-time job on a free website.
Right.
And then they said, a free book from Tony Robbins. So I clicked on it, I put my details in, and then after a few days, I got a call from their office. And they said, why don't you come and attend, a program live with the man himself in London. So I went to that program, Unleash the Power Within. I had a major, major breakthrough. And I realized, that I had so much to share with the world, but I've kept mum and quiet because I did not know what is the right way to speak in front of people. Because I came from such a background that conducting myself in front of people in the right way, with the right etiquettes, with the right accent, with the right style, with the right dressing, there was so much of right in the mind,
Yeah.
It kind of started going away for me. And I went on this, entire journey of researching communication and how, somebody can have a voice in front of any audience, whether it's a boardroom meeting, whether you're doing a corporate presentation, whether, you are representing your company at a conference.
Yeah.
So that's how the journey became interesting. And just maybe 6+ years back, I started teaching, how to do presentations more effectively. So it has been a very interesting journey.
It certainly has been. It certainly has been. And I think that if you haven't gone through that kind of pain and you haven't gone through that struggle, it's very hard to kind of distribute, or you have that kind of depth in your knowledge regarding what it is that you're passionate about, if you haven't gone through it. So I'll tell you something that I've gone through, and that is the fear of public speaking. I have literally cried. I get so nervous sometimes. Now it's of course reduced to quite an extent since I do so many, public speaking engagements. But I'm sure you have dealt with people, if not had your own fears as well. When it comes to public speaking, what do you think, what is the root cause for this fear that a lot of people have? In fact, I believe that the fear of public speaking is actually one of the greatest fears to exist. And how do you identify it? How do you work around it?
Sharing as to what you shared your part of having fear and challenges. 95% of the world population, they say, have fear of public speaking. And the 5% people who don't have, they had the blessing to be in an environment where public speaking was exposed to them at a very early childhood. So it kind of became, okay or normal for them to do. Something could be, like an example of my daughter. She's 5.5 years old. If you give her a microphone, I think she thinks it is okay and natural to speak at that microphone.
Right.
And coming back to what you were sharing, that it is, a bigger fear than dying. And it comes from the comparison of eulogy or the analogy of eulogy. Mm-hmm. So when somebody is chosen to do a speech for somebody who's dead, a lot of people in their mind think it's good to be dead and in that box or coffin rather than doing a speech. Mm-hmm. So it's a bigger fear than dying. So coming back, I had a lot of fear on public speaking. But having said that, I also realized on my journey that it's a skill. It doesn't require any talent. The only talent we require is to have voice. If we speak to our friends, family members, relatives, colleagues, cousin, then the same voice can be channelized to be effective in front of a group of people in a boardroom meeting, in a presentation or in a conference while representing, our company. So coming back, it's a skill you can acquire, you can learn. Yes, there are a few layers to it which you have to be aware of and then work on it, just like you did it, just like I did it, just like anybody else, who is pretty comfortable.
Very interesting. How do these fears manifest in the boardroom, and how can we effectively, or what can we do to effectively find solutions when these fears manifest in the boardroom for us, or at meetings, or when we're doing presentations?
I think the first thing I would like to add is that if you are chosen to present an idea or conduct a boardroom meeting by your bosses, immediate managers, then you must celebrate the fact that they have seen something in you. That's why you are the chosen one. So you definitely, are somebody who has shown the qualities for your immediate manager bosses to pick you up, to present that idea in front of the group or the team or, the employees. The second thing you must do or practice as a person, who is been chosen to do that boardroom meeting or the corporate presentation, is that something I've already touched upon, but I would like to go a little bit deep on this. And I always say this to public speakers who are on the journey to present better, that don't perform. Come from a place to have something called highly prepared. Now this cannot be compromised, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of boardroom meeting it is, no matter what kind of conference you're about to present in. You really have to prepare, on that particular topic or whatever that, idea you have been given to present. So highly prepared. Then there is something called easily and simply structured. If you're not putting a structure to it, you will be struggling. Like, let's say if we want to go from Delhi to Amritsar, we need to know the path as to how we will reach there. There could be like 4 or 5 ways of reaching there, but I decide which path I choose and how I go there. So once you've chosen that path, you know the structure to it. So you put the structure as per who you are, what you feel, is the right way of reaching there. When you put a structure to it, half of your pressure will be minimized. As far as my experience is concerned, it's been 13 years. I've done close to 1,000 workshops.
Wow.
Yeah. And in most cases, not having a structure can put you in massive trouble, especially when you are in a boardroom or in a conference or doing a presentation for the team or employees you have. And then finally, most of the time, if not all the time, you have to be selective in terms of the words you choose, in terms of the slides you bring, which adds value to the listener's life. So let's say if you're inspiring, a bunch of 50 team members to scale up the target by 30%. You really have to do it in a way that they can see the value of increasing the target by 30%, how it benefits them, how it brings more incentives in their life, how it scales up their salary, other places of like having rewards. It's all need to be clubbed up in that presentation. So again, I'll repeat, you got to be really highly prepared for it so that you come across very powerful in a boardroom meeting or that presentation you're doing. You need to have a very simple, easy structure to your presentation. And finally, you got to have this intention that this is going to add value, to my listener's life.
So Amandeep, I want to share something with you. When I was in my first job, I was asked by my boss to do a annual presentation to review my performance. And we were a very small team, a startup. It was just my boss and my one other colleague. I swear I thought I had no problem. I remember getting up in front of 2 other individuals and nothing came out of my mouth. I just started crying. I can still feel that fear from that day. But just like me, there are so many other professionals who, because of this fear of public speaking, are losing opportunities at the workplace when it comes to wanting their promotion, not being able to speak up, and so many other ways where it's just hampering their career growth. So how does this actually manifest? How does this fear of public speaking manifest in the workplace? And what can be done to overcome it?
I think it's a very powerful question, because the answer to this question can lead you to massive growth in your career. Now let's look at an example, from a different perspective, or let's get into the shoes of our top manager or top management. Okay.
Right.
Now they're looking for somebody to promote. Okay. Their decision will be based on how somebody shows up in their perceived world. Now there are, let's say, 50 employees working, okay, in an organization. Pretty much everybody or most of them are equally skilled or talented, and they're pretty good to great in their work. Out of those 50, there are only 1 or 2 who are able to express it very strongly and very powerfully in front of the top management.
Yeah.
So they are the people who are seen. So the choice of being picked up are the ones them. There could be many people on that floor who could be much more skilled, much more technically sound compared to people who gets picked up. So this is a question, I have come across many times during my trainings. And for people to lose opportunities is a very natural process when you don't know how to communicate your thoughts, your emotions, and anything else inside you in front of a group of people. If you can communicate that effectively in your workplace, your chances of getting picked up is much higher. If somebody, let's say, is looking to send somebody, an employee to Germany or USA or Australia for on-site work. Now they could have 10 people doing the same task. They may have 8 people very technically sound in that group, but there are 2 people who can communicate effectively, but their technical skills are a bit lesser compared to the rest 8 of them.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice. They are bound or maybe almost forced, even if they personally want somebody to go because they know that that person is very technically sound, but they'll have to pick up from the 2 people who can express better.
That's I couldn't agree with you more. I've seen that happen in my career. The more confident I've become about my own speaking skills, I've seen my scope and my opportunities grow massively, in fact, exponentially as well. So I'm going to ask you something very, very simple. According to you, what would you say are the attributes of a good public speaker and a good presentation?
I believe the attributes which make somebody a great presenter is a person who can actually bring the audience or the listeners along with them. Because if you look at the term, it says public speaking. So you're doing the speaking for the public, which is obviously your group of employees or team or whoever you're presenting in front of. If you cannot bring them along with you on that journey during that presentation, it can actually become a very one-sided communication.
Right.
And it can also become a bit boring, for the listener. Because our brain, and again, especially in today's information age, we tune out very quickly.
Yeah.
So a great presenter keeps bringing the people back, into the room again and again. Now, one of the techniques which they can use is to ask questions. Because when you ask questions, you stay in charge of the conversation. And every time you will ask a question, it'll help you to bring your listeners back into the room. That's what questions do.
Yes.
So it is, a technique which we actually share with our learners, that if you ask questions, we call it engaging questions. And it can be, open questions sometimes, and it can be close-ended question where there's only 1 or 2 word answer, or maybe 3 word answer. Every time you will do that, there'll be an interaction happening, with your listeners, and it makes you look great, in the boardroom meeting. The second attribute, I would believe that a great presenter is somebody who takes their topic very seriously and does, enough research about it and goes very deep into the topic and brings it out in such a simple fashion that for most people, if not everybody in the boardroom or in that conference, can relate to what the person is sharing, from stage. And the third thing, I would like to share about a great presenter is somebody who can infuse humor.
Infuse humor. I like that. Yes. Okay.
Humor has got many layers of benefits. Just to give you a couple of them, it makes somebody very focused. It makes people open up to new ideas. Okay.
Interesting. Yes.
And it also makes people relax, by the way. You would never see somebody laughing genuinely and being tense and stressed. It'll help them to build rapport with the listeners. And the more rapport you build with the listener, the more smooth flow of that presentation will happen. Even if you, let's say, putting, some top pie chart about the growth of the company in the next maybe 5 years or 3 years,
right,
which could be a bit boring for the mind to pick up. But when you insert those humors, it just makes people wake up, to a different level. So I would say these are the 3 attributes, of a great presenter to be very powerful in a boardroom meeting. So you must take this as a skill which you want to acquire on your side hustle hours, maybe, let's say, maybe on the weekends. One has to understand that presentation is not something you can just, stand up and do it. Like you have an example,
Yeah.
from your past. And finally, there's something called reconditioning or reprogramming, which makes you a different person, which takes a bit of time, Like if you wake up and one day you want to break a rope because you want to be great in that boardroom meeting or presentation, it's not going to happen because you don't have the power to break that rope. Your responsibility as a presenter is to keep breaking a thread at a time.
I love this. I absolutely love this. So the 3 steps of change, as you asked me in your very engaging question, is awareness, understanding, and reprogramming.
Yes.
But I also want to go ahead and go one step before, like you talked about making pie charts, for example, exciting with humor. But is that the only way that you can make things like boring numbers and pie charts exciting? when you're doing a presentation, to convey that message, to bring people together, what are the other methods? And in a presentation, how many words should we have? This is a little technical, but I think it's extremely and equally important as well.
This is a joke, in the presentation world. I think you may have heard about it. It's called death by PowerPoint.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe even been there.
So let's say if I tell you, have you seen a tiger in your life? If I ask you that question, what will be your answer?
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
So yes.
Now, when I asked you that question, they were just not mere words for you. The moment the words transferred and you processed it in your brain, you saw a tiger.
I did. Yes.
So we have to understand that 80% of the world population, we are visual people. We don't just hear mere words, we make pictures.
Right.
So that is one of the reasons, I did mention this, that you have to be very careful in how you put your slides together.
Interesting.
We recommend one picture per slide until it's really needed to bring more transitions with another 2-3 pictures. We recommend not to put more than 3 to 5, maximum 8 words per slide.
Wow.
The reason is, and I'm sure maybe you will relate to this, when you put 100 words or 80 words or 50 words in one slide, though it is very important and is relevant to your topic, but people take their focus away because of the nature they have. It is not in their control. Right. I'll be also going through the same process, and they will start reading the flip chart, the slide or the keynote. So this is what we recommend, that, by the way, pictures, they speak 1,000 words.
Yes, yes.
So bring a lot of, images, keep very minimum words in your slide, keep the color contrasting. If it's a completely dark, black background you picked up, put white fonts on it. Or white background with black fonts on it. The contrasting,
absolutely,
helps the eyes to get giving the attention, to the presenter. Right. Then we also say something, like moving letters or words, transitions. The more transitions we bring, it becomes more powerful.
Really?
Yeah. Because anything which moves, right, it grabs our attention.
Yes.
Have you been to, any, let's say, relative's house, friend's house, when you're talking to them and the TV's on without any sound, it's muted, but somehow your attention goes there a little bit.
It does. Absolutely.
So anything which moves grabs our attention.
Yes.
So we recommend, a lot of transitions in your slide. There is one more thing I can talk about which makes it very, very interesting to talk about numbers, charts in such an exciting way that people feel connected to it. And that technique is storytelling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Storytelling is quite what they're calling a hype word, but I'm very intrigued to hear how storytelling comes into presentations.
It binds and connects us. The reason is storytelling is the oldest language known to mankind. It is 150,000 years old language where there was no text to read or write. The way we communicated and connected and passed on wisdom and shared what we felt or expressions used to happen through storytelling. They say storytelling is the DNA of human existence. PPT is 30 plus years old language or keynote. And I recommend that we prepare and work on it. But if all the focus goes into just the PPT, then we are missing out the human essence.
Absolutely.
People who are listening to us, they're end of the day humans.
Yes.
They could be our juniors, seniors, or same level, doesn't matter. End of the day, they are humans. To connect to the humanness in them, it is very important to do storytelling, because storytelling will wake people up and it'll keep the presentation very engaging, for the listener brain to be hooked up, even if it is numbers. And if you bring it in story formats and story bites, I think the chances of making that presentation interesting is much higher compared to when you're just bombarding the human brain with just numbers and graphs,
Absolutely.
Most human brains will tune out because we are visual.
Yes.
We're not able to cope up with the number. We will tune out. And the last thing I would share, which has been a great blessing of my life, is that when you're doing a presentation in a boardroom meeting, you must imagine that you're throwing balls to the listeners.
Throwing balls to the listeners?
Yeah, for them to catch it.
Okay.
Even if they don't catch, that's not the exam or test, but the time it takes for the ball to reach and for somebody to catch it, and if they're not sending it back to you, but still dropping it and keeping it next to them, takes a bit of a time.
Right.
Could be very few nanoseconds, let's say. But that planned pause or that slowness which you bring in your speaking when you're presenting will help the listener to consume the sharing you're giving. We call it rate of speech has to be at the rate of consumption.
Lovely.
And also, when we speak very fast, like not planned fast, sometimes you have to speak fast because you want to move people into action because it helps.
Right.
But when you're speaking fast, like non-stop, continuously, it's also a sign of nervousness because you're nervous and you're doing a lot of fast talking. So this is my recommendation, that slow down as and when you can and imagine that the ball is going and they got to catch it, receive it, and maybe just drop it or keep it next to them. So give them that little gap so that they can, consume what you're sharing as a presenter in that conference or in that boardroom meeting.
Yeah, definitely. I have been on so many stages myself. And this analogy, I'm definitely stealing and keeping it for my next talk for sure. So thank you for that personally. And I'm sure the listeners are also enjoying this very much, very helpful. All right. Thank you so much, Amandeep. That was our episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of Workwise with Naukri. I hope you got some great insights. If you did, don't forget to share and also subscribe to this channel. See you in the next episode.